All right, guys, we're here. We're back. Oh, man. I'm Langley Austin, promoter Franklin County Speedway and the host of Pit Chatter Podcast. That other idiot you hear laughing, that's Noah Hinchee, my co-host. He thinks it's funny how I come on the show.
All right, guys, we're back.
We're good. We're enjoying our time. We've got Chris Williams from the Smart Modified Tour up here in the tower with us. Chris, welcome to Franklin County Speedway and the Pit Chatter Podcast.
I just want to say, place is improving every single time. Smells good in here. Oh, where's the snake?
Yeah, there ain't no snake in here anymore, apparently. I think it's over in that tree back there.
Snake has been relocated.
No, it was cool pulling up to this place and seeing everybody painting and working and, seeing different things that is an improvement each time we come. And I appreciate you guys rolling out the carpet for us.
Yeah, man. I mean, this is our big race. I mean, we try to make every race a big race, but I mean, you can only make races as big as the fans want to make them, and there's nothing bigger at Franklin County Speedway than the Smart Modified Tour.
Well, we'll get this out of the way. Everybody that comes here says they hear banjos playing, they deliverance and whatever, but when they get to the racetrack, it's all focused on the action on the racetrack. And if you have it any other way, I mean, I think that's the way you want it. Putting on a show that you're doing, and you can make these improvements as you go, but keeping the fans happy with what's going on at the racetrack and the modifieds. We talk about Bowman Gray, and, it has a history, but let's be honest, it kind of started here in Franklin County.
Absolutely.
And people don't realize the history that the modifieds has in the 60s, coming up here and running here on Friday nights and going to Bowman Gray on Saturday night if they didn't wreck the car, if they had a second car.
Yep.
And sometimes they had to work all night to get the car to Bowman Gray.
Right.
Just to tear it up again.
Oh, yeah.
So, but Franklin County holds great memories. I laugh all the time. I'm really hard on JB and my team. I'm like, I look forward to this weekend just because I grew up here watching races. Victory Lane, I got numerous Victory Lanes, pictures with my heroes, Satch Worley, and, the Paul Raffords, and, Gerald Comptons and Jimmy Hensley's. I remember Jimmy Hensley wrecking here one time. I was sitting in a grandstand. I'd come up with him and a bunch of his folks. He was in the orange and white Chevelle, hit the wall in turn 1 or 2, and his tire went all the way down the backstretch. And there's a creek down at the bottom of this hill back here, right?
Yeah. There's a bunch of water back here. I don't know if it's a creek or
okay.
not.
Well, okay, it could be a marsh. Whatever it is, that's where it ended up.
Yeah, they didn't get it back, probably.
No, they didn't get it back. It's probably still sitting down there.
It probably
is. Still.
They have some four-wheeler trails back here now or something.
Yeah, and I remember Gerald Compton having a real bad wreck right here in turns 3 and 4. One night, I was here one night where him and Barry Begley, he didn't get into it. Barry got in some trouble coming off of 4, and Gerald beat him by like 2 foot.
Yeah.
Barry was screaming and hollering at Gerald. He said, "I wasn't driving your car. I finished first." So, but all those memories instilled into me. And let's be honest, the Paul and Sat shows that was here back in the day. I remember one night, I think they passed each other 20-some times.
Wow.
And it was the most amazing thing I ever seen. And they hit each other every time they went by each other. Sat's prevailing that night. But those stories and coming up here on a Friday night in the back of my aunt's Corvette, you're like, wait a minute, they don't have a back seat. I was laying in the window. I would lay in the window of her Stingray.
Yeah.
And
that's
ride
true.
all the way up here.
That's true Franklin County style right there.
That's right. That's right.
We'll have a lot of that this week, man. I've talked to people and been messaged by people who I don't see but once a year.
Yeah.
Don't hear from at all but once a year. They don't care but once a year. I mean, we got great racing that goes on here every week.
Yeah.
But it ain't the same. These modified people, the modifieds just bring these people out here. And we're looking forward to a good crowd this weekend. And I'm looking forward to one heck of a race, man. And I already know it's going to be a great race.
It's going to be great. I mean, every time I come, when you feel like you're home, when you get to the top of the hill and you crest it and you see the tower and then you see the track, you feel like you're at home. And, I laugh, and I'll say this. I don't know how much you want me to say on the podcast, but Priest come here a couple of years ago.
Yep.
And I'm just going to be honest. He said, what are you doing? Why have you got me in this shithole? He's like, have you lost your mind? Are you crazy? He said, there ain't a gas station, a convenience store within 9 miles of this thing. He gets on the racetrack. He gets on the racetrack, and I see him coming down pit road. I'm like, oh, he's pissed. I mean, is there a hole on the track, or is there a track coming up?
Yeah,
what's he mad at?
We've had that.
Grabs me by my collar and says, it's the best freaking racetrack I've ever driven. I mean, and that says it all right there.
Yeah.
I mean, people love coming up here.
Oh, 100%. 100%. I mean, and that goes to years and people, Bobby Allison and Bobby Labonte, you know, he loves to come here. And Darrell Waltrip. Yeah, Darrell Waltrip talks about it all the time.
He does.
Yep. For sure.
I mean, you got to think about, I mean, the people that's driven here, Wendell Scotts and the Pettys and, I mean, the Earnhardts. I mean, everybody that's ever set foot on this racetrack will have a memory of just how good a racetrack it is to race.
Yep.
And anytime you mention that that's where you're racing, they're like, that place still open? Like, yes, it's still rolling.
Yep.
And they're like, man, that's the best track I ever run. And it'll give me a full-blown racing story of how it was back in the day.
Oh, everybody's got a story of coming here, you know.
Well usually it has Whitey in it.
Well, we ain't got too much of that lately. So.
I'm just picking with you.
Hey, listen, those are always good stories to hear, too.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, good or bad.
It makes a character.
100%. 100%. People remember this place for a variety of reasons. I mean, I have people call me, you know, all the time, and they'll tell me a story about things I didn't even know happened here while I was here.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, that's interesting. So,
yeah.
Well, speaking of, you know, having a good show this weekend, man, you're talking to me about some of the guys coming this weekend. It's a who's who of the modified drivers, not just Southern, but some Northern too.
Yeah, we've got a good group. We probably have about 23, 24 cars. We had a couple kind of back out, not really because of anything that's happening at the track. They've personal issues and stuff. I won't get into it. I know Hirschman was coming all until a couple of days ago, but that's okay. I mean, Hirschman, he wants to run this racetrack, and, you know, he's going to get his chance within the next year or two, but this is a great racetrack. You know, we got Frenchie coming with Jake Crum. Crum's tested here, loves the racetrack.
Yeah.
It's going to be fast. He's due for a win. He's been in the top 5 every time he's ran with us, so that's going to be good. You know, of course, you got Danny Bone, who everywhere he goes, it don't matter where he races from north to south, he's always competitive. Another Northerner we got, Sammy Ramu, just come off.
I was going to ask you how to say his name. I was scared to say that one.
Well, it depends on who's talking to him, right? But Sammy Ramu, you know, he just had some issues last year. He won with us at Motor Mile, left there, had an issue, got suspended. We just kind of kept him on the suspension list for a while from the standpoint of what was going on with NASCAR, kind of seeing what, you know, was happening with them. And then, you know, anytime we've had a really serious issue, you know, with a team or whatever, generally about 6 races, either probation or suspension or whatever, and he had been through 8 of our races. So I felt like it was time to bring him back. It's a big investment in these modifieds, and he went through some training. His dad's not kind of with them a little bit now. They're letting his crew chief and a newer guy come in and do some things. And so, you know, you don't, you know, everybody deserves a second chance in life.
100%. And listen, what better track for a brawler to come to than this place,
100%. It'd be Kyle Busch and Stenhouse.
Exactly. I mean, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. And so, you know, we've got a Patrick Staropoulos coming. You know, hadn't seen him race in quite some time, so it's going to be good. Coulter's bringing the second car. Joey's coming himself. You know, anywhere Joey goes, you know, winning in the truck series and doing all the stuff that he's done in ARCA and so on is always a crowd pleaser. Of course, Anthony Bello, the historic Hillbilly car, is always here. It's always great to see that car pull into the racetrack just because of the history that his dad had, how competitive they've always been in the South and winning, but also when they used to go up north and spank everybody.
Oh, 100%.
You know what I'm saying? People 100%. Don't realize the history in the 79.
Tell us a little bit about Anthony Bello, because I don't think many people, I mean, we're used to the one-man Taliban being in that car, and I don't think this is the same experience.
Yeah, a little bit different experience.
Yeah.
Anthony's more reserved. He still drives the car really hard.
Yeah.
Has a lot of laps. You know, he's a feisty competitor, but he's a little bit more low key than the Taliban.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. You know, let's be honest. Savali's going to drive it wide open every lap, and the car better last. If it's not, it's going to
100%.
blow, and it's just the way it is. I mean, look at our first race up here, him and Labonte, him and Fleming, him and whoever else, and he gets passed on the last lap, by John
Listen,
Smith.
I'd pay for him to be in a race here with me, okay? I mean, I need him racing stock 4s here every week, okay?
Exactly.
Please.
That guy's great.
He is a show every time he gets it
Every
behind the wheel.
time. Hey, you know what's funny is the dude outside the car, he's like the most low-key guy there is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I'll tell you something. Anthony's the same way. He's an astute. He listens. He's not very vocal. But, I mean, if you see the competitiveness that they've run since they got the new car this year, the 79's turning it around.
Oh, yeah.
And you're probably going to see them in Victory Lane for the years out. And it's no better person than I'd rather hand the trophy to is Bello and David Hill.
Yeah.
I mean, I love it.
And this would be a cool place for him to win at.
Their history, it would be a great place for them.
Yeah.
Brandon Ward, of course, in the South. He's very competitive in everything that he does and runs. And, with him changing teams, they've been working through some gremlins a little bit, but they're always competitive. And those guys over there with the history and, the talent they have behind them, they're going to find their way to the front pretty quickly.
And Kenny Minter Jr. being on the team, I mean, they want to win this race.
Well, this is what they should come. This is
100%.
This is the honor of his dad, and the history that Kenny's had, and juniors help them out. I mean, they want to be the one to hold the trophy, and they want to be the one to hold the banner, not only for their dad because he's being honored, but it makes them proud that they won for him.
Oh,
so
yeah. That's
absolutely, it'd be a blessing to have them in Victory Lane.
That's
and
right.
John Smith, the first year he won, the whole thing was about Kenny.
It was,
and so it's great.
One of
to
his
honor.
sponsors.
Yeah, 100%. So it'll be good for them to seal off a win here at their home track. Ryan Newman, of course, kind of the same thing. First year we brought him here, he's like, "What are you doing to us?"
Yeah.
And then he drove and loved it. I mean, he got into 2 or 3 little things last year. He was going to be in contention, but got spun out and messed his bumper up and couldn't really use it like he really wanted to. And Newman's a racer. Once he's raced once or twice, he's going to figure it out, and he's going to go to the front. And,
I've got his barbecue guy coming again. He loved the barbecue last year.
He loved it. He talked about it.
He mentioned it in the interview when I interviewed him a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, you gained 2 pounds. Had to loosen up the belts.
I guarantee it.
And you got the defending winner here, Burt Myers and Jason Myers coming.
Yep.
Slate's coming running a 6:02. I think you're a year away from seeing Slate branch out a little bit into the tour a little bit. And, Slate's progressed tremendously over the last year. I talked to him down at Wilkesboro last weekend, and, Slate's progressing. He's come from a long list of Myers racers.
Yep.
And it's good to see the next generation of guys coming, just like Carson Lofton, who's dominating our series right now.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody's looking at Carson right now, not only from, our series, sanctioning series, but also in the NASCAR realm. And I think the kid has been taught a lot. He's got a good feed from his dad and his grandpa about how to conduct his business and carry himself. And if you've ever been around him, he's fun to be around, but he's a true racer.
Yeah.
And he's an astute racer at 15 years old, and it's showing this year, winning 4 out of 6. But he's good. He's extremely well. He'll be here as well. His dad's coming. They've been having a lot of motor problems, but I hope they got that gremlin away. I mean, they've blown like 5 motors or 5 times this year. And Brian, anytime Brian sits in a race car, he's competitive.
Oh, 100%.
He's a champion.
Yep.
And then that's just like going through the list of all of our drivers and stuff. I mean, we have 28 championships sitting in these race cars.
Yeah.
So we talk about it each and every week. You look at our field, our top 16 is a 10th or so.
Yeah.
It's the most amazing thing you've ever seen. So you can be off just a little bit and be 16th. But you can get out front and be as equal, and a veteran can hold his line because he'll make it wide enough that you don't pass him.
Yeah.
And in our world, especially in the modifieds, if you can get up off the corner, more likely you can do what you need to do in the turn to keep that deal. And the veterans you see always tend to come to the front, and these kids are starting to learn that. Luke Baldwin, let's just be straight up, king of the modifieds.
Yep.
Luke's on that same thing. He's running 45 races this year in all sorts of SKs and modifieds and late models and everything else. Luke's, won the biggest race of our season so far, purse-wise. And I'll be honest with you, he's an astute. He comes from a long list. His granddad was a great race car driver. His dad can set up anything there is in a race car. And the kid is not shy of putting it where it shouldn't go. He's ruffled some feathers this year, even with his best friends, with Jimmy Blewett. And they've had words. But at the same time, you have to test what those boundaries are, and sometimes you have to get it back in line. But it's like I told Dale Jr. and them one time. I was like, when Noah Gregson was getting out of hand, I said, don't rein a driver in. He'll figure it out. Either they'll figure it out through another driver teaching them that lesson, or they'll figure it out. I said, but don't rattle them. Don't pull the reins back on them. Let them go. And I think with Carson and Luke being the way they are, that's a good thing for the sport.
Yeah, I think the thing about the Baldwins, Tommy, when he came here last year, that's the first time I'd ever interacted with him. I didn't really follow modifieds, with Race 22 and stuff.
Yeah.
We, primarily was late model stocks, and I didn't know, and I'm expecting, here's this Cup guy. Oh, God, he's pulling up. I ain't got no parking spots left. This dude's going to be the biggest jerk in the world. He pulls up, and he goes, hey, man, that spot over there on the back, is it good? I said, well, yeah, if you want to park there. He said, that's where I'm going. And it was never a problem.
No.
I mean, and most of them guys are not like that.
Yeah.
They come down, and they want to, but that whole family is nice. I gave them guys a ride on a golf cart last year from the backside back over to the front. The young kids, I believe it was Luke and Carson.
Yeah.
who was riding with me, but I can't remember for sure. But
yeah, he's a class act, and it's you get to know these guys pretty well, and there's a few that feel like they need to be treated at least equal to everybody else.
Yeah.
Maybe one or two that feels like they deserve something more.
Yeah.
But 80% of them, they just want to be told straight up, point blank what you're dealing with.
With them.
Just be honest with them, and they understand. I mean, most of these guys own businesses themselves. They understand how to treat the customer, and realistically, we're the customer of the track. They're the customer of the sanctioning body. Just be honest with them. You know what I'm saying? And they'll shoot straight with you, and that's the cool thing to deal with them.
Yeah, for sure. The biggest disappointment for this guy here, my co-host, is that Bobby Labonte won't be here. He followed him into the bathroom or something last year.
What?
I ran into him in the bathroom.
While he was peeing?
No, he was walking out. I was walking in.
Okay.
I
was a little too close to the urinal there is what I'm trying to say.
Why he was using that bathroom, I have no idea, because Lord only knows he's got a nice bathroom on his hall.
Well, he might have had it in the coach out here, but he didn't have it in the pits.
But they've been swearing that I went in there, I followed him on purpose. I did not.
I told Jeremy Mayfield to be scared for his life last race.
Well, he was up here practicing Monday. Last Monday, not this Monday, for all of my modified guys. Nobody's testing this week. So chill out.
Don't tell him about that car that just left. Okay?
Oh, my God. But, no, he was up here testing. Was you not up here watching him?
Nah, he has to work.
Oh.
Yeah.
Real job's getting away.
Well, Bobby was trying to make it, and I was with him at Wilkesboro the last couple of days, and he was doing everything up till yesterday to try to still make it. But the schedule's just, he's back and forth with Indy, and, he's doing all the stuff with Gibbs right now, and with Charlotte being in town. And everybody knows, this Coke 600's a premier event, and all the sponsors are here, and he's got to entertain them. He just couldn't make it work. And he did tell me, he said, if it rains, do it on June the 7th. I'll make it. So it's not going to rain. But I'm just saying, that's their mentality.
Yeah.
If it rains, I can make it the next Friday or the Friday after next.
That sounds about how Dale Jr. was down there
I swear.
River.
They always look at alternatives, and you can't blame them
100%.
because they're living off that calendar.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? And they want a chance to race, and so everybody starts picking and looking at the weather, and we're like, no, it's just a shower. It's not going to be no big deal. It's going to come and go. But they're like, well, if you do, I can do this, and they all do it. Every one of them. I've had 20 phone calls on the way up here today. What are you thinking?
Yeah.
I'm going to do a podcast. No, what are you thinking? What do you mean? It looks like chance of rain from 4 to 5. I'm like, so it's a shower. We're good. We're going to be fine.
Yeah.
Okay. And I understand it coming from Pennsylvania and Florida cultures, and it's a big travel, and you know what I'm saying. I get it. If it was calling for a 2-day rain, a hurricane, and it's it was a squall, it'd be different. But this is a shower. This is what we get every May and June. It's an hour and you're gone. 100%. It's going to get hot. It's going to get humid. You know what I'm saying? It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So we're good.
It's good and hot here today, too.
It is hot.
It's going to cool down a little bit.
But I will say
Friday.
it's a lot cooler with these tinted windows in this tower.
Yeah.
Because normally you can't see out of it, and this is perfect.
Yeah, don't tell everybody how nice the tower is. I don't want everybody up here Friday, okay? It is nice.
The
and there's air
buffet in
conditioning.
here is amazing.
Oh, my gosh. That's why Noah keeps coming.
When do
Okay?
you have to cut those heaters on for the buffet? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Is it all tank or you got the gas line run?
Yeah, we got the gas line run on up
just
here.
picking. You have everybody up here wants something.
Oh, I know.
Look, we got enough big boys up here already. All right? We ain't trying to share with nobody else.
For sure.
Oh,
for
man.
sure. What do you think it is about the Smart Modified Tour this time? Like, you know, it's been done before. It was done by the Hackett's. It was done by NASCAR. You know, obviously not by the same name, but, you know, the Southern Modified Tour. You know, this rebirth,
Yeah.
man, it's been amazing.
Well, I mean,
And I ain't gonna lie, when you guys first was gonna start it, I was like, that's ignorant. That's just why are they doing this? That ain't gonna work.
I've heard that a lot. I mean, it's funny because people said we couldn't do it. People said that we weren't going to get enough tracks to do it. You know, we said we weren't going to get any help from sponsors. We said we weren't going to get any help from Hoosier.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I heard it all. And this is nothing negative to NASCAR, nothing negative to Hackett's because they're great individuals. Darren and I talk tremendously a lot about the sport. They love it. They do.
Yeah.
Even the folks that was there in NASCAR back in there with Hawk and all them, we talk about it all the time. It's a different era. And what I mean by different eras, you have to find ways to create opportunities for a driver and a team to want to be there.
Yeah.
You also have to find a way that the track doesn't take all the risk. And we look at things totally different. I mean, we talked about it earlier. We won't get too deep into the conversation of it. But, you know, I have to take a look at when I was running Bo McGray and I was paying for the car and the tires and what it was costing me to show up to the racetrack. Then you got to start understanding why am I doing this? You know, what am I doing it for? Well, you really, every one of these drivers are really doing it for the love of the sport.
100%.
Or they were introduced.
Everybody in this, not just the drivers. You,
everybody,
me, everybody.
We have history, right? And so I was like, what? And when I first asked, Tom Buzzy and a couple of guys come to me and was like, you need to help this series out because you know we have $100,000 race cars, 2 or 3 sitting in the shop and nowhere to run them.
Yeah.
Why? Well, it's just one thing after another, after another, after another, and I'm like, well, what's the real reason? What's the reason? Well, you know, we just need somebody at the front that looks at it totally different. And I'm like, I can be that guy. And so I went and sat with the tracks. I went and sat with Darren Hackett. I went and sat with other tracks. I sat with you. I was like, what do we need? What do you need?
Yeah.
And the concern was that a true tour, you know, is going to get in that 30, 40, and 50,000 range of cost.
Look what's happening with the car store.
And so, and then they can't afford it. And so every one of you guys just started giving me notes. And so when I went and sat down with Puddin, not Puddin himself, all the team owners at Puddin's.
Yeah.
And I sit there and listened, and everybody brought up their concerns of tires and everything else. I took their top 10 notes. I took the top 10 concerns of the teams getting to the racetrack and why they couldn't make 12 to 15 races a year, what the cost was. I sat down with the teams and started working out their cost and the track's cost. And I'm like, the only way we can make this work is to go find a true sponsor that's going to believe in what we're doing at growth that can also B2B reach out to their consumer. And God bless, Senator Stanley was doing a relationship with Pace-O-Matic. It all came to fruition in a few short months. And from the driver's side and the track side is the track needed to make enough money to pay the purse that they can afford. We worked it out. The teams needed to make enough money, so not even with the track, make money. Yeah. Not lose X amount of dollars.
Right.
And so when I sat down with the teams, it's you're doing this for a hobby. You're doing this because you love it.
Yeah.
What is the number that you can go have fun that you can live with? Because if it costs you $3,700 to show up at the racetrack and you're racing for $1,500, and your tire bill's $4,000.
Right.
Then you got to explain to your wife, if you have a wife anymore, right?
Yeah.
You have to explain to your wife, well, I spent $4,000 to go win $1,500, but next week will be better.
Yeah.
What I tried to do was reverse it, and I did go to Hoosier, worked out some tire issues. I won't give away our negotiations. You know, Freeman being gone, I miss him every day. I know Steve and his son's holding down the fort, but Freeman knew the sport better than anybody.
Yep.
And when I told him what I wanted to do, he's like, that might work. And I won't get into it, but one of the things he said is, I was like, do you want X amount of dollars off of one tire, or do you want 20 cars to show up so you can sell more tires?
Right.
He said, nobody's ever explained it to me like that. Let's try it. And lo and behold, we only do 5 tires.
Yeah.
I won't get into splits. I won't get into all that
Sure.
other stuff because I know I'm not getting a split.
Yeah.
Because I want the savings to go to the driver.
Right.
So they can go home and say, well, you know what? I finished 10th. I won $1,000, but I spent $1,100. I went and played for $100 this week. I think
Yeah.
I can handle that.
Yeah, it ain't bad.
Deal.
So I'm not saying it's all the way down through that because I know we as a group all work in the same direction to save money. I mean, we're doing 1 days. You know, we don't come in until after 12 at most. We don't practice. You know, we don't wear out tires and put laps on motors. People don't realize that after it gets to 1,000 laps or whatever, you know, you got to do something to the motor. If it gets to,
Yeah.
you know, and all that $10,000 to refurbish a motor anymore. All those things come into play, and everything that we did is we sat down to say, hey, how can it be affordable? What's the best thing for the racetrack to get car count? Because let's be honest, you sell more food, you sell more whatever, you get a ticket, at least pay for part of the show because you're not going to pay for all of it.
Right.
Unless you pack this place at 5,000 to 8,000 people, which the
Yeah.
first year we almost did it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was real good.
But all I'm trying to say is I had to look at it totally different than anybody else, and I'm not saying Darren or nobody else did that. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not saying NASCAR didn't do that, right?
Yeah.
All I'm saying is if I say it, I'm going to do it. And if you
Yeah.
talk to anybody in there, I've done everything that I can to them to walk away and say that I didn't shun them or I didn't do things a certain way. It's all about credibility.
Yeah.
Honestly, credibility, loyalty, and trust. And that's how I try to build all my relationships with my track, with my drivers, my sponsors, and my manufacturers. And it's worked out. And, you know, I'm not saying we won't have, a conversation here and there that gets contentious, but that's just the way life is because they may
Yeah.
see it 2 different ways.
Right.
But if it's for the good of the sport and it's good for the team and the drivers and the tracks and we can all get along and put on a show like it's going to be this Friday night, then
Yep.
people's going to come and know that we're enjoying it. The most gratifying thing that I've been told over the last year is when I go to Stafford to the Spring Sizzler, or I go to another track up north, or one of the drivers come down here and says, all they talk about is how happy y'all are, and everybody's enjoying what they're doing, and you're always trying to make it right. I said, well, we don't want to make it wrong.
Sure.
Everybody can't agree, but at the same time, let's work through what we can and make everybody enjoy it. And one of the guys says, you're the only track that we have to cut the lights out on y'all. Y'all all hang around,
Yeah.
you talk, you have a beer too. I don't drink, but they do. You know
Yeah,
what
sure.
I'm saying? But at the end of the day, if you want to sit around and talk about history and what's going on at the racetrack, you know you're enjoying the space you're going to be in. And if we can enjoy what you're doing and love what you're doing, then why not make it successful?
Oh, I agree, 100%. And I think that everything that you explained, the whole strategy and the timing matters so much.
100%.
That's been y'all's catalyst for success there for sure.
Yeah.
Take us through. I don't want you to get too deep, but some people don't know you other than from the Smart Modified Tour. But
Yeah.
I mean, you've got not only your history here, but I mean, just through the years. I mean, you've done a little bit of everything.
I had cold chills thinking about my history. Appreciate you asking. A lot of people don't know I grew up on a Martinsville Speedway Road. My dad passed, but my mom still owns the property there, the first 2 houses and the shop. As a young kid, my dad, 8, 9, 10 years old, I would go to work at the Speedway. He was general manager.
Yeah.
And I would cut onions. I would stock buns. I would put out chairs. I would sweep. I would clean. I would do put speedy dry, whatever there is to do at the racetrack. I was doing it. I won't say 8 years old, but I was still there. But 10, 11, 12 years old, I was doing all that stuff. And, I got to grow up in the 70s where real racing was happening. And I'm going to say that kindly because it's real racing today.
It's different.
But it's different. And the history, Buck Stevens just passed away yesterday. And I remember going down there and seeing him win in 72, and those guys, they call them Yankees, but those Northerners come in and put a beating on them. But people don't realize in the 60s and early 70s, the Southerners were putting a beating on them.
Oh, yeah.
And I have great stories, and I won't get too deep into them. But, and I grew up around the 00 with across the street with Flude Hudson, top of the hill at the Speedway, and I got to be around modifieds. Clarence Pickrell grew up with Alan Pickrell and Jim Barber. Racing was in my blood, but the cool thing with my dad being associated with it and me living on a racetrack road, the new road wasn't in, and so the haulers would all park in front of the house the night before, whether it's Wednesday night for the Dogwood or the Cup event. They would always park on Wednesday night, and I got to go talk to those drivers. Sometimes they would be in the truck because they didn't have coaches and airplanes and stuff back then. And I got to be friends with Ted Harrison and the Wrangler deal back, when I was in high school. And I just built a relationship with all those guys, and sometimes we'd go get food for them and Kentucky Fried Chicken and what. I'm serious, it'd be a party, and got to know them all, and just got to be fun. And then when I was in school, had sports, played basketball, baseball, very gifted in those deals. That's 3 state championships at Drury Mason I played on, which was great. And anyway, the athletic side of it, the competition drove me. And then the racing side, as I got older, I was got married and had a son, Josh, who spotted for Blaney, won the championship last year. And but I sensed that I needed to be in racing because my dad was there, and I loved it. I loved the racing. I got to know a lot of the people, and felt like it was where I wanted to be. Was surveying. I was working 3 jobs: DuPont type lag operator. I was surveying for Lawrence Cockram Land Surveying, and I was screen printing at Bass Walker, screen printing of all things. And Hank Jones kind of got stuck across the road from Mom and Dad's where the souvenir trailers used to be, and asked me to come to work for him. And I did. I mean, I went to South Boston to meet Earnhardt. Long story short, I already knew Earnhardt through my dad. Hank didn't know it. And so when Dale walked up, he said, "Hey, Chris," and that's the rest of the story. Because Hank's like, "Oh, God, y'all know each other."
Right.
And so, I mean, I did that. Quick Josh through, I went to vice president of sports image, worked trackside, went to work for a public company, Action Performance, Motorsports Authentics.
Right.
Then NASCAR bought it out. I went to work there, vice president of trackside, conglomerate through Motorsports and SMI. They sold it to Fanatics in 2013. Was vice president of Fanatics. They put the 10 out there. Lord God, what a mistake that was. All these people that worked for me, man, there were long nights, but we did it. They got out of the sport in 18, wanted me to kind of do all of their stuff, Kentucky Derby, Super Bowls, college football playoffs, all-star games. So I got to go see the rest of the sporting world, which nobody gets to do that.
Sure. And
do it, and then the pandemic hit, and I retired. Well, that was a mistake. So I retired, and then this is when the pudding meeting happened, and during the pandemic, we raced at Ace. Everybody knows that story.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We raced at Florence and Caraway as a trial.
Yep.
And then 21, we started full throttle of the Smart Tour. And that's kind of me in a gist, but there's a lot to that. I won't get into all that, but that's kind of me in a gist.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people know your background there.
And, and I can say that all the guys that I represented, we added it up. I've kind of started a book, an audio book of my life, and there's a lot of stuff that's going on. People don't. It's only interesting because of the things that's happened to me.
Yeah.
And there's so many great stories to be told and heard. But at trackside, I did well over $1.5 billion in just a small short time of the trailers, and people don't realize how much money it is in souvenirs.
Oh yeah.
And those stories are really robust.
Yeah.
Of how you get money back then when it was only 10% credit cards.
Yeah.
And 90% cash.
Oh yeah.
And how that cash got transported. A lot of that's going to be in the book, and they're great stories. But anyway, they're fun, and the relationships with the drivers and the Fortune 500 companies that I had to represent with M&M's and Coke and Pepsi and DuPont and GM Goodwrench and Shell and all them that I got to be, friends with their top brass has really helped out, especially knowing the business as well as I did and what we were trying to do. That same thought process of profitability was the same thought process we did in the souvenir trailers of making certain items and what the shelf life would be. You know, if you build 200 of them and you're only selling 5 a week, you got a long road to hoe, right? You had to figure out how to move them, whether it's 2 for 1 or whatever else. And so me and my assistant, Marche Kelly, and my wife at the time, Venus, went really through that detailed to make sure we didn't get locked down on inventory, because inventory can kill a company.
Right.
And so that same thought process we carried over here from all of that. And it was a fun time to be in. But Earnhardt, Richard Childers, the stories are tremendous. Hunting and some of the things that we have done in our past, airplane rides, almost dying in a helicopter, which we're going to put in the book. But all of those are great stories that will never be replaced. All the hunts that we did with Dale in San Angelo with Marshall Brown and everybody there. But those stories they need to be told. And now most of the people are gone, so I can tell them.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But it's going to be Simply Chris. We already got the title for it because I'm simple. I'm a simple man. I treat people like they treat me, and I don't bash anybody. I don't try to go do something. I mean, I respect individuals as long as they respect me too. And when you build that relationship off of respect, there's nothing you can't get done. And that's the one thing that I can say about the drivers. You can walk up to any driver, Kevin Harvick, Bob Labonte, or whatever, and they can tell me sometimes they think I'm full of crap, but it's because I like to have fun. But at the end of the day, when it comes to business, they know what I tell them is going to be the truth.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to live off of.
I mean, you didn't know you was going to be talking to a guy that knew Dale Earnhardt.
I didn't know it was that deep.
Oh, it's
I knew
deep,
it was
brother.
going to catch you off guard.
Dude, it's deep. Me and Dale told me one time he had 5 best friends, and I was one of them. And if I consider myself to be in on any of those fingers right there,
That's pretty good.
with Dale Earnhardt,
Yeah.
then I'll take it, because that means I didn't try to take advantage of him.
Right.
Because a lot of
And
people
everybody did, I'm sure.
everybody tried to jump on the bandwagon.
Yep.
And if he considered me a friend, well, we talked almost every other night. Nobody knows he went to bed at 9 o'clock unless
Yeah.
he was at a function, because he'd get up at 4 o'clock, feed the chickens, and
Oh, yeah.
do
Yeah.
the other things. He
Right.
signed autograph for an hour and a half every morning. And the place that he was signing autographs at DEI was a room. It was unbelievable. I got to sit in there and talk with him sometimes when he was signing. But Dale was a man's man. He can go talk to the president of a Fortune 500 company. He can go to the President's Club in Washington, D.C. and talk to the president and those guys. And I'm going to tell you right now, he had Bill France's ear, and he could go to a couple of drivers and kind of get what everybody's thinking and go to Bill and sit down and get some things changed. And you don't have that driver nowadays.
We're missing that now for sure.
Everybody thought Stewart was going to be the guy.
Yeah.
And then it should have been Harvick, because he definitely had the business acronym, but Dale was a man's man. And I got some great stories. Earnhardt is going to be in the book.
Yeah. I don't want to get too far off in the NASCAR world here, but you talk about him having, Bill's ear. Dale Jr. is that guy now just on his podcast. He literally goes on his podcast, spews a bunch of crap, and that's what they go do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, it's because Dale is I say this, and I don't want to get feedback, but there's really not a man's man in the NASCAR world right now.
No.
And I don't want anybody to take it the wrong way. I don't.
Yeah.
Because I'm not demeanoring those guys that hold that steering wheel and do what they do. And there's a lot of smart business guys in there. But sometimes you have to learn how to walk that fine line between what you're trying to get done, reality, and make sure that you have a good rapport instead of scream and holler like a kid, because you don't demand respect. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You have to earn it. Yeah. And some of those old school guys knew how to do that.
Yeah.
And they knew how to talk to them. And Dale Jr., he's come out of his shell.
Oh, yeah.
Since Amy come on.
Yep.
And I got to hear a lot of conversations with Dale about Dale Jr. Growing up, you know. And we'll share them sometimes, maybe in the book, but Dale Jr. needs to hear them first.
Yeah, right.
And but at the end of the day, Dale Jr. does have the ear, because he still, retired as he is, has 95% of the racing industry listening to him.
100%.
Not just because of his name, but because of his growth and what he thinks 90% of the population thinks. I'm not saying everything he says is correct.
Yeah.
I'm saying, you leave that up to the 10% of being debated. But
he's on the pulse.
he is on the pulse. And
100%.
he understands what the old school needs.
Yeah.
And the problem is we've got 85% of the old school gone.
Yeah.
And they want a reason to come back. It's just they don't like everything that they're seeing.
Yep.
And right now we have everybody that's there trying to cater to the 15% that's still making the other 85 ticked off. And Marcus Smith and those guys are doing a really good job. NASCAR is doing a good job. What they're trying to do is just our fan is so fickle. They don't like change.
No, they don't.
They hate
at all.
They hate this new car. They
it goes
hate
all the way
Bath.
down here.
Oh,
okay.
my God, you've ruined short track racing. You know, the mid-size tracks suck. They're all D-shaped. They all look like Charlotte Motor Speedway. Oh, now they're the greatest thing since sliced bread. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the only thing that stays consistent is Talladega. We're going to wreck. Right?
Yep.
So at the end of the day, and and look, I understand what NASCAR is doing. You know, they're seeing what's going on in Formula One. They see what's going on in other sports that's getting a lot of media and broadcast dollars. And so they're kind of chasing it.
Yeah.
When in reality, you don't need to chase it in NASCAR. It's its own fickle.
Yeah.
It has everybody's attention. They had sponsorships many a time that when I was representing NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, we would sit in a room and they're like, well, we want to do what NASCAR does. We want to do what NASCAR does. But back here on this side, well, we want more TV coverage or we want more branding or we want, and you don't understand. You have it.
Yeah.
You've already established it. Everybody wants to be like you. Continue to do what you're doing. Make subtle changes. And, look, I think the car was a struggle in the beginning. I think it's coming around. We definitely got to fix the short track racing in NASCAR.
Yeah.
Because right now, Martinsville Speedway is the best race there is, but, the last couple has been hard.
Yeah. For sure.
And I think everybody knows it. I think they're all trying to do it. I think the one thing that everybody wants to see, Dale Jr., Kevin Harvick, everybody else, and this is just my opinion, is they want to see more horsepower.
Yeah.
And I understand why NASCAR can't right now because all their tests.
Yeah.
We've had people hurt. Kurt Busch is back into the wall, and he's no longer there. So they feel like if they give them more horsepower, they're going to have a 25% more chance of being hurt.
Right.
And so the liability to that is tough. Well, let's build something that we can give them at a short track where the car is safer.
Yeah.
And that's what it basically boils down to.
Yeah, I agree with that. And for what it's worth, I've said it on this show, not that we try to dive into NASCAR much, but they have an amazing product right now. On par with a lot of the things going on in short track racing.
Yeah.
Their racing is pretty amazing most everywhere. Transitioning out of that, you said, more horsepower. Man, we're going to have more horsepower here Friday.
Yeah, yes, we are.
Man, these things, if you've never seen a modified, which most people that's going to listen to this have seen them and love them, but if you haven't, man, they are amazing. They're loud, almost to the degree of obnoxiously loud.
Yeah.
To quote Randy Myers, well, not that I really want to do that, but he said they're so ugly they're cute, and they really are.
I think they're a beautiful piece of machinery is what I think.
They are.
They're different. I say this all the time, and I'm not trying to knock any other sanctioning down or anything else, but you can go to some of these events, and I'm not talking about this week, last week, or just in the years past, and you walk into the racetrack and they say, okay, tonight we have limited late model, pro late model, super late models, late models, and
limited late
models. And I'm like, well, what's the difference between the six?
And you won't see a difference when they come on the racetrack either.
And so I'm like, is it just speed? Basically, is that it? Maybe a little bit lighter, maybe, just a little bit of, spool or rear end or what, what I'm saying?
Different engine.
But to the fan, what do they see?
Yeah, 100%.
What do they see? When a modified pulls out,
they know exactly.
that it's open wheel, ground pound, and 650 horsepower, depending on who you're talking to.
Yeah.
And that these guys that hold these steering wheels, they're more of an acrobatic daredevil.
Yeah.
Because if you give them an inch, they're going to take it. And you got to understand they have a Nerf bar there for a reason. Back in the day, them Nerf bars was skinny. You can jump them. Now you can use them up a little bit, and they very much use them.
Yeah.
It's amazing how the front bumpers every week at Bowman Gray they're gone.
Yeah.
Every week, like I'd find me some type of bumper that would do something different. You know what I'm saying? Because they pop up in the air or they dent in.
Oh yeah.
And that's the number. But you know what? That's what they want. They want it to take the concussion out of it. But you cannot mistake a modified when you see it and when you hear it and when it goes by.
Yes.
And the smell.
Yep.
We don't use any more different fuel than anybody else, but it's just something about a modified that the smell of the modified at a racetrack with the noise and everything else is you can't get enough of it.
And, for whatever reason, and I may be insane saying this, they sound different here than they do other places.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's an amazing, when they come here to test, I stay here all day.
Yeah.
And I don't stay here for anybody else testing, okay?
Yeah.
I don't want to, I don't want to sit there and watch people just make laps, but they look like rocket ships out there. Just bam, on the gas, down the straightaway.
That's basically what they are.
Yeah.
They're you're sitting in behind a motor that's built for speed with rails on the side. I mean, if you take one apart, it's a cage.
Yeah.
And with suspension.
Yeah.
And people don't realize it. I mean, they're so fast. I mean, they're 2,650 pounds and 650 horsepower. And to be honest with you, with this spec motor, it's not unlimited. They have 8,000 chip in it. Most of them run 7,600, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And they're governed for torque. People don't realize they can run faster, but they're not worried about going faster. They're worried about torque, and that's all they focus on all day long. They can get them to run fast, but it's going to wear the tires out.
Right.
And so it's pretty amazing to see where these things have come and where they're at. But there is no mistaking a modified. The real reason why we do a pit party is because when you get down there and see what they're sitting in, you get down there and see the narrow cage that they're in, and then you're asking yourself, they ran 104 mile an hour at a Franklin County.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The last 2 years, even South Boston's been a mile an hour slower.
Yeah.
This is the fastest place that we run per mile per hour.
Yeah.
I'm not saying by second lap.
Yeah, sure.
I'm talking about per mile per hour. And it's amazing to see. And look, it happens in a hurry. You look at our last 3 years here, the wrecks that's happened. You have a half a tenth of a second to check up. If you and your spotter is not paying attention, you're in it. Ask Ryan Priest. Ask Newman. Ask John and Boyd that jumped over the 18 in the air. It happens in a hurry here, quick. It can ruin your time. But you also talk to all the drivers, and with the speed, you can use a second groove here. You can arc. You can pass. You don't have to run over somebody like you may have to do at some of the other tracks. So the one thing about our modifieds and the way we have it set up, we have a stage with the Kenny Minter, so 110 laps. We always run the stage at 35 laps, instead of the normal 30.
Sure.
But there's always comers and goers. You never see anybody. Look, the race in the last 3 years, the person that's led the most laps was right here with Tim Brown. He led the most laps of any race we've run, and he didn't win the race.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because there's always comers and goers.
Yeah.
And it's when you pit, it's when you take that tire, it's when you flop those left sides, and at the end of the day, there's you're not going to see follow the leader in a smart tour. It just don't work.
Yeah.
It just don't happen.
No. There's a lot of things going on the track during those races.
Yeah.
I mean, no matter how many cars is in the field,
That's right.
how many get taken out, as the race goes on, even if it thins out a little bit, man, there's racing all throughout the field.
That's correct.
Noah, you got anything you wanted to ask Chris or talk to Chris about?
Yeah, you said earlier you got about 10 phone calls on the way up here. Just from me hanging out with Langley, I know he gets tons of phone calls. How do you go about balancing the personalities of you got just these young guys like Carson, and then you've got just regular dudes, and then you got somebody like Ryan Newman. How do you go about balancing all the different personalities and trying to keep everybody happy?
Ryan Newman is a regular dude. He's a cool dude.
Well, y'all know what I mean.
The drivers are all pretty easy.
It's those crew chiefs.
They're all pretty easy. They're all pretty easy from a standpoint of, they'll come and talk to you about this, that, and the other, but it's usually about what's going on in the tower or what they see that we can improve on, because we all need improvement, right? I mean, we do for sure. And Hoots does a great job for us. We brought him out of retirement pretty much, and he's got a lot of experience. But, I mean, those things you kind of work through. I will tell you, it's kind of funny that you bring this up, because I just had a conversation with somebody, one of my officials this week, and I said, listen, this is what you have to do. When a driver after the race, you need to let him vent on you. And I said, the reason is Because if he don't vent on you, he's going to walk away and vent on his crew chief, his family, anybody else that'll listen to till he gets a chance to talk to you on Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've always done is I go in right after the race and I let him vent. You don't see me talking much because I want him to express his views to me. Now, if I see it differently, I'll express myself.
Yeah.
But if I don't, and I don't have enough information, and I want to go back and watch flow or watch what they're talking about, and I'll go back and talk to them. They're pretty easy, right? Car owners get a little testy. You know, they get testy from where they're parking. Why you gave that spot right there. I won't even get into the Orange County scenario I had a couple of weeks ago where the 602 was parking in a spot. But I let them vent, and a day or two later they'll come back and apologize to you. But sometimes they're made to be competitive. That's the reason why they're here. And you have to understand you're in a competitive sport. So managing that it's pretty easy during the event. It's pretty easy after the event. It's when they don't like what they see and they think that you're not playing by the rules, I guess is the word.
Yeah.
There's no secret. We brought in Gadget. Everybody felt like that, there was some tech issues going on with us, and that was the last piece of our puzzle to get the Smart Tour where it is. And they had a meeting in Winston-Salem and set up and said, we got to get better at tech. Chris is good at here, and here. But I'm the first one to tell you, I ain't no tech guy.
Yeah.
I wasn't born to be a tech guy, right? Yeah. I can do business, I can do numbers, I can do payroll, whatever, but I'm not a tech guy. Now, I'll be honest with you, as much as I've learned in the last 3 years, I could probably do it if I needed to. But we went out and got Gadget, and now it's the exact opposite. Oh, Gadget's too hard. You're too close. You got too much going on. You can't test this every week. I'm like, what do you want? You want your cake, and you want to eat it too. What do you want?
Sounds very
We
familiar.
have exactly the same scenario here. For the last 3 seasons, I've been doing tech, okay?
Oh, God bless you.
This year, I hired a guy, and boy, they do not like him.
Yeah. I think they like Gadget. Gadget's just, he'll tell you, he's pretty fair and square.
Yeah.
But we all make mistakes. And Gadget's learning the modifieds. Just because he's been in NASCAR for 40
Sure.
years, believe it or not, it's 2 different cars.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, we probably made a few mistakes, and we'll learn from them. But I think the things that we're doing is progressing the sport forward. Hey, we got new winners this year with Luke and Carson.
Yeah.
So, it ain't all bad. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying anybody was doing anything wrong before, but I'm just saying they're all being treated the same.
Speaking of making mistakes, the whole tech thing, I'm not calling it a mistake, but at Orange County, did you think afterwards that was a mistake? The way you guys kind of backtracked on how you handled that?
Yeah. Well, listen, I think we're not supposed to talk about the hearing, but I think if you knew what went on in the hearing, I think that there was some recollection that we should have done some things better and the team should have done some things better. Blake, probably the piece that was in the car didn't help him win.
Yeah.
But it was the rule, and
Right.
Gadget's got to run by the rule. And so the one thing that a sanctioning body and a racetrack doesn't want is a decision to be made after the race, that's going to cloud it. But they also want fairness for every driver that shows up to be treated the same.
Yeah.
And work off the same rule book. So as much as we don't want controversy, sometimes it has to happen.
Oh, yeah.
But it teaches us a lesson on how to handle things going forward.
Yeah.
And I think that one did. I hate it for Blake. Blake's great. I know they're going to come back and run with us later in the year, but I wanted him to have the belt as much as anybody. It was good for us for him to win.
Sure.
But when my tech guy makes a call,
Right.
and it's in black and white, we got to make the call. Now, it
Yeah.
doesn't mean we don't massage the situation going forward, because I'll tell you guys,
Yeah.
the meeting afterwards with our tech officials and said, we got to do a better job before the race.
Yeah.
That would have been simple, right?
Yeah.
It would have been simple.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't have had to put everybody through it. But we'll learn. We're not perfect. And we're going to get better. And I hate that it happened. And, we learn a lot of stuff when we do these things. And it's
We all do.
And I will tell you that, we've shortened up the rule book about 30 pages for next year already because maybe that doesn't come into play based upon the intake.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, we are learning so much, and we work hand in hand. with the Northern Tour, not just NASCAR, because we do.
Yeah.
And I don't run against them. I don't run against the stadium, for a lot of different reasons. I work well with Ed Bennett at Monaco and those tracks and ROC. I work with their tech guys tremendously. But we learn from each other.
Yeah.
And that intake was a topic of conversation that week, not from the standpoint of the number, but there's some things being beveled out in the bottom of those intakes. It's not a true 1-inch intake or
Gotcha.
whatever the case may
Gotcha.
be. And so I'm not saying that it had anything to do with it, but, there's certain things on your radar sometimes that you need to check before the event.
Yeah.
And everybody doesn't know exactly what was going on. We had an issue with the carburetor in that car. And, yes, the carburetor had to come off the intake, but when we come over there, it was sitting on a workbench at the track, and we didn't look at the intake at that time. So we now have a checklist.
Yeah.
These are the certain things you do before the race. So we'll take responsibility, right?
Yeah, sure.
But there was things that preceded that, and it was they didn't do anything to try to manipulate the intake. They didn't do anything to try to look it over. It was there for us to look at.
Right.
It just wasn't looked at the right time. It could have been
Gotcha.
something simple.
The media guy in me also got to ask about Hickory, the Hickory 98, 99, 100, whatever it was.
Well, so here's what people don't see, and this is pretty funny. So, we work off of most of the scoring systems of the track, and most of them do a really, really, really good job, and so does Hickory.
Yeah.
But they were working off of, I think it was MyLaps, which is a different process than what we normally work off of.
Yeah.
And the score has to work with us because we don't carry our own score. We use what the track
Sure.
supplies, and it's nothing against Hickory.
Yeah.
But everybody, if you go back and look, and I had to spend hours on this,
Yeah.
everybody says you only ran 98 laps at 100. You only won 98 laps at 100. Well, what happened was, and you know what the rule is,
Yeah.
you can call a caution all day long, but until they get the caution either by flag or by light, the race is not stopped until that. That's what NASCAR goes off of. That's
Right.
what the rule book goes off of and everything else. Well, if you go back, which I have all the videos, Hoots called the caution about 20 yards before it.
Yeah.
Well, by the time the score hits the deal and the light comes on, the first two cars already passed.
Yeah.
Well, Hoots says caution out, green, white, checkered before he even knew that answer.
Yeah.
Okay? Well, in their scoring system, when you hit it, because all the cars hadn't completed, it
Yeah.
goes back a lap.
Sure. Yeah, same deal most all the systems.
So it goes back to 98.
Yep.
So the official scorer turns to me and says, well, what do I need to do? Because you're going green, white, checkered, what lap do I need to start it on? And I'm like, hang on. We got to check to see where the light come on. So we checked where the light comes on, and Hoots says leader did not take the caution. Race is over because they were working lap 100, right?
Mm-hmm.
Working it, coming to the checker, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So race is over, right? Because he didn't take it.
Sure.
So everybody believed it was lap 98. So after the race, Bert went off. And I told Bert, he's second. And he was underneath Carson twice.
Sure.
And he was going, well, I'm not going to say he's going to win, but he's going to give a heck of a restart to win. And I understand what but if you go back and look at exactly what happened, the race was official. Now, it never got changed on MyLaps. It never got changed on the score system.
Yeah.
Even on Race Monitor, who taps into it when she referred it back to the lap before, which is lap 98, right?
Yeah.
That's the way it was. But
Yeah.
heck, we still ain't finished the race from Caraway from 2-3 years ago yet. Me and Bob Labonte was talking about that at Wilkesboro the other day. But listen, that's the kind of things that we have to take a look at. That's the kind of things that we have to get better at, and just how we present it. Hoops was probably a little quick to say green, white, checkered before he knew what was going on. We got to have better access to the TV replay so we know exactly what to call it and give a better explanation. But look, it's passion again. I understand what they're saying. It can't change the call, but it's what happened.
In that instance, do you think, personally or professionally, do you think it'd been better off to go back, green, white, checkered, finish the race?
Well, because our rule book states this, and I get it reminded by Hoots and Gadget every week, you have to manage what the rule book says.
Yeah.
You can't go off of your opinion. Now,
Yeah.
we all have them.
Yeah, sure.
And would it be great to have a green white checker for
Yeah.
the finish?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. But it may have took the win away from Carson
Hey,
too.
can we rewrite the rule book before this week in case this comes up?
No, we can't.
I mean, listen, it can be edited from a phone. Trust me, I've done it before. Okay.
Yeah.
I've edited the rule book here before, just out of necessity. But
You've done what?
shush. Well, that's a Wes Givens thing. He
I-
said, "Well, it says in the rule book." No, it
Yeah,
don't.
that's the one thing that I will say that Gadget and Hoots has instilled into me is, black and white.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it because, you can't do it because, you want a better show, even though
sure.
we all want it. You can't do it because, you might like that sponsor better than the next, which
Right.
should never happen.
Right.
But I'm just saying people have that in their
People
mind.
believe it anyways.
People believe it. I mean, that's what they believe.
Yeah.
And you can't do it that way. You have to manage on what the rule book says. And let's be honest, that meeting that I told you took place in Winston-Salem a year ago, that's all they wanted. And that's
Yeah.
what they're getting with Hoots and Gadget. And look, I was the judge, jury, and prosecutor till then. And it feels awful good not to have to be the judge, jury, and prosecutor.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm in
rule
the
book
same
is.
boat here. I understand.
Yeah, so I get it.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I just feel like from that standpoint, I feel like, at the end of the year, you should rewrite that rule book because every race should end. It should have a finality. You know what I mean?
Well,
and that was not
Hoots-
much of a
Hoots
finality.
was a firm believer because 2 years ago, or was it Bert last year? It ended with
Yeah,
the
it
caution
did.
come out when he
It
went
did.
into 3.
Yeah.
And at the time, our rule was if you're in the middle of the back stretch on the after you take the white, the next ends it.
Yeah.
Well, now it's green, white, checkered.
Yeah.
We changed it after
Yeah.
that. So that did help a little bit. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? But if your leader don't get the yellow before the the end of the last lap, then the race is over.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, there's a few things that Hoots has been very on me about is the race should finish right here on the checker flag.
100%.
It shouldn't be somebody spun out or
Yeah.
something else, and I agree with it.
Yeah.
And we try to manage through the rule book. And look, everybody has their own take. We are an entertainment business, but we're not an entertainment to dictate that should Carson or Bert have another chance to win. It's not
Right,
It's
sure.
not our call.
Sure.
Yeah.
Even though it's better for the show.
You're trying to get me to say this, and I'm trying to
100%.
step
Listen,
around it. I know it's better for the show.
It's
but
100% better for the
yeah,
Listen,
yeah.
I fight it every week. Jay Altizer, he's my race director,
Yeah.
and every week I'm like, hey, man, that would be nope.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, all right.
Yeah, I know.
Fine.
I get it. It's tough, but I get it.
No, you got anything else?
Yeah, what we got to do to get some of your guys into our 4-cylinders? Between my people and Mr. Wes Givens, we can supply them some cars.
We could just about field the whole field.
I want to see him go out there. I want to see Ryan Newman. I want to see Bobby Labonte in a 4-cylinder. Let them go out there and beat and bang with our.
I don't think you're going to see that anytime soon.
No, probably not. But I mean, especially this year, our boys been a little rough out here, and I'd love to see a big name guy just go out here one time in a 4-cylinder car, just beat and bang with our boys.
That'd be difficult to do.
Yeah.
They're afraid to get hurt, or
It's a whole different. It's a whole different beast.
mentality.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with you, but unless they were playing on a practice day or something, I don't know if you'd see that.
Well, I told them, when Ryan was here to test, I said, you should have went over and asked him because, he might have said, yeah.
he might
and he
have.
may have another seat, and he'd send it, and bam, here you go. You just
there you
never
go.
know.
Yeah,
I mean, when I said earlier he's just a regular guy, he literally is just a regular guy.
Yeah, you'd be surprised when you get to know these guys, and everybody says, well, they're this, that, and the other. When a lot of times when you're at the track, Dale Sr. told me this a long time ago. When you're in your workplace, you're trying to get certain things done in a certain time.
Yeah.
And you're kind of oblivious to everything that's going on. When everybody else is in there walking around in the pits, they only have a couple of hours to get what they're done before they get run out or
Sure.
the pit closes or whatever.
Right.
And you make a lot of people upset. But realistically, you're going into their work zone and they're trying to get certain things done. And then they'll say, okay, I got 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and they'll do it.
Right.
These guys, put their pants on one leg at a time. I don't see anybody wearing skinny jeans that's going to jump into them off the bed. And
I know a couple of them.
and not in our series yet. But
They're working their way in.
it's working their way in
No,
there.
let's keep it that way.
Yeah. But they're down to earth. They get up, they have to go get breakfast and take care of the kids, and sometimes take care of whatever, and listen to the wife and the honeydews. I've heard so much more of, oh God, I got to go home Monday and do this in the yard and that in the yard. So they have the same problems we all have. You know what I'm saying? But the cool thing about it is they get to do something that only, 98% of us dream about doing, which is go fast, turn left, and, if you wreck, you wreck. If you don't, then guess what? Go home and do it again next week.
Yeah. He knows all about the wrecking. I'm just saying.
You just won't ever let it go.
No, I won't. I won't for sure. Anything that you thought we would talk about that we haven't, or anything that is out there that we should talk about?
No, man. It's look, coming up here is just like I said. It's like coming home. It's 34 minutes from me to Martinsville to here. I stopped by and seen Satch Worley and Gerald Compton. Gerald's not doing so well. Been in a hospital, and Satch was cutting fields. No, I mean, just the history that this place holds and you guys keeping it going. It's not easy to do what you do on a racetrack week to week. You're battling weather and all sorts of other issues. You're battling presidential election year and stuff. People don't understand all that stuff comes into play each and every week. And just keeping the racetrack functional is, what I'm saying. You're giving back to the community. I'm not saying there's nothing else in Callaway to do on a Friday night.
There is nothing else to do on any night.
But that's what I think so unique about here in Lake Bowman Gray. I mean, what are you going to do in Winston-Salem on a Saturday night? I mean, it's a folklore here, and the modifieds coming back just kind of adds to it, and we just love coming up here. And we got 20-some cars, and that's plenty for this racetrack for the modifieds to come.
It's too many, actually.
I mean, if I raised the purse like I did a couple of others, we'll have 30 and 40, and you'd have one division, maybe two, just to get everybody parked.
Yeah.
And we talk about that all the time. But coming up here and racing Friday night, it's going to be fun. There's going to be a lot of people here. It's going to be a destination place. I've heard of people in Martinsville already talking about, I'm going up there. And so it's going to be fun. And this is every May. This is one of the tracks that, we look forward to coming to. We like going to all of them, but we love coming to Franklin County, not just from Kenny Minter, but just the history that the track holds. And, those guys, the stories when they leave. I won Franklin County, and, hope we have another winner here this week that's going to enjoy it as much as the ones before them. So
and it's amazing. Every year, the winner's just been, like the first year with John Smith, and then John Boy.
Yeah.
Being the hometown team basically. I know they're not here, but they are. And then Bert was, he hadn't won, and he was elated, and then he kind of went on a run, and it's been kind of special what's come out of here in the last three smart dates. Yeah,
it was fun because Jonathan wanted to win it, because of the Kenny Minter, and he ran a great race, and then. John Boy winning, like you said, with Senator Stanley and Hermie, and had all the guests here and everybody here. We had 50-some guests here, which was really good to the world out there. We didn't plan that. And because everybody be conspiracy theory, right?
Yeah.
And then Bert, because, his dad ran a lot of races here, and Philip Smith, who helped him out, first smart champion, winning up here. And, it's something Bert checked off. Everybody has that checklist that they want to do in life. It doesn't matter if it's travel, competition, or whatever else. And so he checked it off. And I'm sure this weekend somebody else is going to check it off, and that's going to be a fun deal.
Well, before we go, I got to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
What have we got to do to get 2 dates? That's all I want. I want a July Friday night next year, and our May. Don't get rid of the May.
I'm going to be sarcastic to throw it back at you. So we need high-rise grandstands right here in turn 1 and 2.
Be careful what you say.
And we need the bathrooms. I hadn't seen them yet, so with that, the VIP to be finished. So
we're working on that.
Guests in scoreboard. I want to see.
Hey, I got a lap counter right here. We're going to at least have it. It's literally right here on the tower. I'll show it to you when we get done.
Would you do a single tower right there, just a pole that goes straight up right there? If I can find you one.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't want to put it in the infield. I think it needs to be right where.
Listen, we'll do whatever. Okay.
So when you get all that done, we'll give you a second date.
Okay. All right. Listen, if that's all I've got to do. Then you open the door. We're going to be 2 times in 2025. So
I hear you, brother.
I mean, he's going to have to stick to that too. He said he was a man of his word.
That's a deal.
All right. I appreciate you coming for sure. We enjoyed having you. I know we took you a little longer on the show, and your phone's been buzzing over there. Everybody wanting to know if it's going to rain, and it might sprinkle a little bit, but it's not going to do much, and we ain't worried about it.
I don't think it's going to be a showstopper. Not out today. Not unless something changes.
I don't either, for sure. Noah, any parting words here as we get ready for the modifieds on Friday?
Come on down. Who cares about the rain?
Exactly. 100%.
It's going to be fine. It always is.
Yep, that's right. All right, guys, that'll do it for this episode of the Pit Chatter Podcast, and we'll see all of you guys Friday night for the Smart Modified Tour.